Call to order the May 2nd, 2023 workshop meeting for Plymouth Township Council. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First of all, apologies for the Tuesday and the 7 o'clock. I will take partial responsibility for that. We'll try to keep it moving. So we have the conditional use hearing at 6 on Monday.
Correct.
And you or Mike will be here, I guess.
Mike will be here and we'll be running the hearing, I guess.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Citizens Police Academy resolution.
Yeah, we'd like to recognize the graduates, and I think they actually go to another room and have a graduation ceremony after
They finished their class.
they finish their class. Okay,
Right.
and then but they'll come here first at 7.
Yeah, I didn't know if council would like to give, there's only, I think, 4 or 5, if they'd like to give the certificates to them, or say anything, but usually we have them come here just to be introduced, just briefly recognize them.
Second graduating class ever,
Yeah.
right? so that if you want to sign that to somebody or
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 of them, but they're all in the same resolution, right? So we'd only read the resolution one time.
right, oh, yeah. And then hand out 5 certificates.
Yep.
And we probably wouldn't plaque them either. It's more like a certificate. Yeah.
Any takers?
Sure. Wow. Sounds great.
By reading it, that means you have to enroll next year.
Oh, I'm in.
And we have 220 years of service for David Phillips, Brian Wagner. Nick, you want one?
Sure, which one?
Take your pick.
I'll do the first one.
Yeah. And are Karen and Kathy?
Karen will not be back, but Kathy will.
We'll give Kathy. All right. Administration, the National Opioid Settlement ratification.
Alex, do you want to explain that or not? Like, there was a deadline, so we got everything in on time, and we advised we should ratify.
Yes,
The
so
fact that we signed
the
this.
deadline was April 18th. We asked Karen to go ahead, fill out the forms in order to allow the township to participate, and then we would ask for ratification later on. It was a similar settlement that we believe we signed off on the end of 2021 with other entities. So there's we are participating in one, and this is the opportunity, depending on money, to receive additional funds as a result of this proposed settlement.
And we already received one check, I think from last year, and it was, I was going to say $13,000, $18,000, something like that. It was significant. It's certainly worth the vote and the paperwork.
And just to remind, do those funds have to be designated for something specifically, or is it just like a
They have to be
general
used for
fund?
certain purposes.
Narcan and other things that we, yeah.
Training, medicine, and there was a full other host, but the $13,000, I'm assuming, is can mostly go to the training and the Narcan.
Is that a Mike read, or is that?
Anyone could take that. It would just be a motion to ratify the
Participation.
participation in the settlement.
I'll take that. A robust agenda for police and public safety this week. All right. We have the National Police Week resolution. I'll take that one. The Officer of the Year resolution.
I'll take that.
John, are you going to want to add anything for either of those?
If you don't mind, maybe to save time, I'll just say something for Officer of the Year, just incorporate a little bit of Police Week.
Sure.
Thank you.
Item C, bus patrol issue.
Chief, I'll turn it over to you if you want to
I'll just say briefly, I know Derek and I haven't had a chance to meet, we've been working on this a lot through email, and he's been giving us all the information we need. I will tell you with Bus Patrol, I just recently met with the other police chiefs of the school district, Conshohocken and White Marsh. Even though they haven't really pursued this as far as we have yet, and they haven't had their solicitor working on any of this, when I explained some of the concerns and some of the issues that our solicitors found, they seem to have the same reservations right now that we do. Because I also had a Zoom meeting with about a dozen chiefs throughout the county, where the districts are trying to get into this bus patrol. And I guess the biggest problem is that Bus Patrol has a memorandum of understanding, and they've been given different ones to different police departments. Basically, if you push back a little, they'll make some amendments, like a lot of the things that our solicitors have found. And I think that that's been a little bit concerning for a lot of the different chiefs, because if they don't realize this or they don't push for the right things, it seems like it's a fairly big money-making venture for Bus Patrol. And I don't know right now if we wanted to get into something, we're not in the business of making money. And it seems like all the work is put on the police department. We have to review all the film, we have to issue all the citations, we have to go to all the hearings, and we wind up being the defendant, which means we're also liable. So there's a lot of issues to work out. What I was going to suggest was maybe we should let some of the kinks be worked out by some of the people that are in it before we jump in. That was going to be my suggestion.
And I have Derek here tonight. Derek actually, in addition to assisting the chief in our office on the bus patrol issue, successfully did the zoning opposition with me 2 weeks ago for the restaurant that we were opposing. But Derek, anything else you want to add about that?
Hey, good evening, everyone. To add on to what Chief Nurciati just talked about with bus patrol, there actually was a new law passed effective April 11th, which unfortunately complicates things a little bit further. Comment to that rule specifically states that the district court shouldn't be receiving any of the funds from a guilty verdict or a liable verdict on these proceedings. Instead, it's the police department's duty to collect that money, which really presents kind of a whole host of options. It's a $300 fine for each of these. The police department by statute only gets $25, so it doesn't really seem right that they should be doing all the work like Chief Nurciati said, and issuing a citation, reviewing video, going to court, and then also having the added responsibility of basically being a collection agency. So I agree with what Chief said. Maybe a little bit of time to work out the kinks would be a good idea. In speaking with some of the other solicitors, we think there's probably a way to have Bus Patrol carry that burden of collecting all those costs, but that's something that does need to be worked out, I think, before we really move forward with that.
So we know it's a program that we were interested in exploring, but I think we need to fine-tune it before we're able to move forward.
Questions?
Take that off the agenda then.
Yeah.
Explore that later.
Thanks for the work on that. All right. Discussion on the loan for Harmonville Fire Company.
Yeah, I guess the last time we met with the fire company, they did ask if council would be willing to give a 0% interest loan. And so this, I guess the column, on the left shows 0%, the column on the right shows 3%. Earlier, 3% was the lowest council was willing to go. And so that's, I guess, for your discussion or consideration. I think right now what they did was, I know right now they applied for an extension on their RACP grant because they still have to figure out some more funding. They're going to need, at this point, need more than the $2 million to match the $2 million. The cost estimate for their firehouse is coming in at latest conversation between $8 and $9 million. So anyway, they did ask if you would consider this.
Yeah, I guess the issue was that.
Maybe too soon. I don't know if it's even too soon since.
I guess but just with their costs going up, any little bits here and there as they try to maybe revise their plan to possibly lower their costs, if there's anything that we can do on our end a little bit. So I guess that's kind of where the conversation went. I mean, just me personally, I know that that the interest rate does just protect us a little bit, but when you look at what their costs are and I don't know, like what we stand to gain, I don't think it's unreasonable to consider zero, but I guess it doesn't really matter right now, like
Right.
until they're ready to go for the funding, right?
Right. Yeah, they did apply for an extension.
Do we know, I guess, do we have any idea if they were looking at 20, 25, or 30 years of the options?
I don't know which way they were leaning. I guess if it were interest-free, why wouldn't it lean toward the long term? But I'm not sure. They also asked for the township to be the grantee on the loan. Apparently, the fire company wasn't eligible to be a grantee on the loan, so Plymouth Township is now the grantee on the loan, on the grant, on the RACP award, whatever, grant. Not loan, just that's free money. So, and they needed a contact person, so that's.
Kellen, any general thoughts or?
No, just the price doesn't keep going up. Just haven't thought about it.
I mean, like I just personally, like, just good based on what they're up against, extenuating circumstances. Like, I wouldn't mind doing the zero, but I don't. That's just my thought. I mean, we can certainly think about it and talk to the other two. We don't have to decide tonight, but
Yeah,
I
you
guess
don't
just
have to decide tonight,
just something
because-
to think about,
Back
and
here.
consider.
Okay, I'll take that off, just,
Is there a projected timeline, though, by which they are looking for a decision, or hoping to make their own decisions, factoring in whatever we share?
well, I mean, initially, I remember they wanted to have a grand opening on their 100th anniversary, which is next May, but that's not going to happen, so I'm sure they would like to move quickly with it, but the price is, it's more than the township has to lend right now. You know, we had a meeting last week or two, I guess 2 weeks ago, and explained that we just had to reject sewer bids for $4.3 million because, you know, we just don't have that, and we certainly don't have $6 million or $7 million to give them, to lend to them. We just don't have it. So there's, yeah, I'm sure they would like to move more quickly. I don't know if we're going back to their architect to see what they could do, you know, maybe change up some of the design.
All that process that we went through sounds so familiar. All right.
We can take that off for now.
And then the change for the requested change for emergency services board meetings.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, the beginning of this board was that they met once a quarter before they actually had the name Emergency Services Board. They just used to get together many years ago on their own, the fire companies, the ambulance, and the police department. At some point, not that long ago, they created the Emergency Services Board, and the board was going to meet, like, I think we started out meeting every month or something, and it was too much, and they went to every other month. But the board, you know, some of these meetings don't last very long at all. So they had, at their last meeting, they said, can we ask council, it is in the actual, it's an ordinance that says they'll meet every other month, but could they change it to quarterly? And then they would still get monthly updates from the fire marshal for vacant and dangerous buildings and things like that. They would just send that around for an email so people knew. You know, if there's anything critical that came up, they all share it anyway amongst all the chiefs of all those departments. But I think the reason was some people were getting babysitters coming out and having a 10-minute meeting and just, you know, figured it was going to cost them so much money to pay the sitter, and the meeting, they didn't have enough to talk about at the meeting, so it didn't last long enough.
Those parks meetings were much longer than the emergency service. I made a good trade on that one. I don't have a problem with it. If something ever came up and the board had to call like a special meeting, they could still do that to me.
Sure,
right?
probably advertise it, but yeah. No, I mean, not that anybody ever comes to these meetings, but we could always advertise it.
Do you want to compare an ordinance?
If council's in favor, yeah.
Yeah, I would trust the professionals who are involved to know how often they should meet.
It's fine.
Okay, John?
We'll try that and get that over to Linda to include for next week.
It'll have to be advertised, so we'll do it, we'll have to do it in June.
Forgot.
It's an ordinance, yeah. We'll
Yeah.
just do it in June.
Not a resolution.
Right, exactly. No, that's what's actually in the code book, but there's the section numbers for you, so you can look them up, yeah.
All right. Anything additional? John?
I did want to just briefly update council on New Elm and Light Street, that proposed four-way stop. Although PennDOT hasn't given us their written decision yet, our traffic engineer did talk to them, and they've told them it doesn't meet their
Warrants, criteria.
criteria.
Warrants, yeah.
Which, I mean, we knew that going in, so that's not something that they're going to do there. I know that the residents will be disappointed. I have not shared that with them yet because I wanted to let you all know, but I did promise I'd keep them apprised, so I will. They don't seem to have a problem with the cross for the school crossing. That's something I'd like to look into more carefully, maybe talk with Chris Lasciavo. Karen and I have talked a bit, because I'm afraid that it could be potentially very dangerous, since there is no stop sign there, because people do drive fast there, because there's a lot of truck traffic there. I don't want to give people the false impression that just because you step in the roadway and people are supposed to stop, I really don't think that they will. I think that we could be headed for a tragedy if we don't really look closely at signage and distancing and so forth. I think the traffic engineer was also suggesting some kind of traffic calming thing, but I really don't think that things like speed bumps with that truck traffic, I think the residents would really be upset late at night with all that banging. It would make a lot of noise. And then it would expand through the township, I think, and I just don't think it's a good idea between plowing, between noise. So I'm going to get back to them, let them know where we stand. We will keep looking into at least the crossing to see if it can be done safely, but we don't meet the criteria for the four-way stop.
Do you have a one person that you contact for down there? Is there like a?
I do. I forget her name. She's.
Is it Artis?
It is.
Because she reached out to me today asking, so I'll let.
I've had this for about a week, but I wanted to, again, just to brief you all first, because I'm sure you'll be hearing from her or some of the other people there, so I figure you should at least know what's going on. And then I can keep meeting with them about some of these other things, but we're at the whim of PennDOT. There's not much we can do about that.
And you said there's already a lot of signs down there?
There's a lot of signs, and people are already disregarding them. I want to make sure, just because we put a sign that there's a crosswalk does not mean, and I don't want a kid to be, at the mercy of a truck or a car speeding through there. They seem to be satisfied, the residents, with the extra enforcement we've given them, but I also know it's because they've been waiting to hear the answer here. So we'll keep working on it, but that's going to be something that's going to have to come off their plate.
Those crosswalks that have like the flashing lights.
It would have to be something where there's a lot of, it really has to bring people's attention, but there's a lot of signs there, as what Karen was talking about, it might get lost in that also. So maybe me and Chris will go out there and take a good, hard look, but it really does have to be something that catches their attention.
Mid-block crossings are the most dangerous, when they're not at an intersection, so they do have to be heavily signed for liability.
And just to throw it out there, from what the traffic engineer said, and I think Chris knows this also, to make this an official crosswalk, we're talking about curb cutouts and all, so there's an expense there. It's not just painting lines, because it has to meet the criteria, so there's more to it. But we're still looking into that, and I have to see what PennDOT's official answer is, but they seem to say that that's something that they're okay with, if we think that it's safe.
Make like ADA curb ramps and things like that,
Yeah,
so
you
then
have
you're
to
going to
have
take parking
truncated
away.
domes, just like, yeah.
It'll take parking spaces away too, right?
Yeah.
On
And
each
if the
side.
residents hear that, they at least need to hear that beforehand, because then they might say, well, look, you can't take parking away, so that might not be an option. But I'll offer to speak with them again to see what they think. That's all.
Public Works, you guys are up. National Public Works Week resolution.
happy to take it, but.
Yeah, let's give it to
Keep her
Kat.
busy.
Yeah. Chris, would you want to say anything with that too, or?
No. Guys do a good job.
And the highway materials bid?
This past Thursday, April 27th, bids were open for street paving. I'd like to award the low bidder is Glasgow for $348,000. Fuel prices have come down, oil prices have come down a little bit. Last year, I think the cost per ton was about $92 or $93 a ton. But because of fuel prices, the milling has skyrocketed almost double a square yard. But I think I can get that number down to about 300,000. We're going to eliminate one small section of road on Hickory Road. So we should be right around our budget.
Any takers? Lynn? All right. Anything else, Chris?
No.
Mr. Manai?
There's nothing tonight, sir.
All right. Land Development, Conocelli.
First one is Nick.
Down to Royal Farms.
No, actually, it'll be
That's
Mike.
gonna be, yeah.
That'll be Mike. If ready, they're waiting on one more traffic report that should be coming out tomorrow afternoon or Thursday morning, and if they can commit to whatever is in that report, because Carroll Engineering just got it today. So they said they would try to turn it around by tomorrow afternoon or Thursday morning. And if Royal Farms can agree to whatever they say, that will be ready for Mike. I think Al's at the conference room on that.
I saw that. I didn't see a
Yeah.
reply. So they haven't replied yet, I'm assuming.
Right, we did, right. Well, they haven't seen it yet. They're going to get the report tomorrow afternoon.
And we have through June 30th, so if it's next month,
Yes.
we don't have to worry about a waiver.
Right. We don't need that extension, right?
And 502 West Germantown Pike.
This
Lynn.
in. And that's on their
Is that the
land
same
development.
thing as the hearing?
No, that's on their land development. So they filed their conditional use application and their land development on the same day. Assuming any risk that they don't get the conditional use. So they're moving both along at the same time. It still remains to be seen if they're finished with, right now, they're not finished with their land development review. So that extension is granted till July. Get us a couple more months. If it's ready in June, it's ready, but I don't know that it will be.
And then the two escrows are Nick, right?
Yes.
Code enforcement?
I have none.
Anybody have anything?
Is the
Do
CAD
you
discussion?
want to talk about that in exec? Yes, because it's potential litigation. Jim, you'll be sticking around.
Excuse me, zoning?
So there are no new applications this month, but you can see on that circulation 4-029 that there are 3 continued cases. One is a residential application, there's a sign application for Pets Plus, and the CREEP, which is their application for apartments at the mall exceeding the density that the code allows. So didn't need to have a separate advertisement because they were all opened last month.
So we don't need to advertise? You said we don't?
There wasn't a formal advertisement in Times Herald, but yes, you can read it
Just
if
read
you'd
this.
like
All right.
to tell
Yeah,
people
I'll-
what the cases are. And we're just giving you that information because they were all previously advertised in the newspaper as needed.
I'll take that one. All right, Parks and Rec. Oof, it's August on this calendar already. Slow down. Slow down.
We don't want this all to be over.
Who'd like to read the events? Kat?
Kathy?
Yeah, thanks, Kat.
Kathy said yes.
Kat. How do you say yes in Irish? Yes? Is that where she is? Ireland?
Yeah.
And Plymouth Township Day announcement? Lynn? Mr. Brady, anything to add?
No, we have a couple new things for Township Pay, stormtroopers being one of them. Hope we have good weather like we did last year. With the banner, so they can see before it heads up. We have 4 more of those pictures on them, so they came out really well, so we're very happy. So it's been hung up and dedicated on the 23rd.
Should we announce that? Is that on here?
I didn't put that on there because it's more for the families
Sure.
as opposed to.
Sure. Got it, got it.
Oh, yeah, the T-shirts have been selected, the official township T-shirts. The green one that says Plymouth Township with the year established on it, one, so, for this year. You can have another
Green's not really my color, so I'm not really.
And they're ordering it in blue too.
You're ordering in blue?
Okay,
That's my request.
Blue,
Yeah.
yeah.
But we will need you to wear them as influencers, so.
Absolutely.
They're all nice, but I did look.
Did you go for the blue?
You want a blue?
I like the blue because it was
I like
front
the
and
blue
back.
design.
Yes.
But the one that was the. front
So they
was
ordered the
one.
T-shirts,
They're
the
all
green
nice.
design.
They are, and we could, we get hoodies, Kellen suggested hoodies.
You get the shoes.
Yeah, we're gonna order just blue T-shirts,
They
with
put like
the green
over 100
design.
people voted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is what I heard.
All right, miscellaneous old business, our citizen board vacancy announcements. Anybody want to read those? I guess we'll talk about one of these in executive session, but. Nick?
Sure.
Anything additional?
Not for me.
Anybody? All right. I just feel like I went through that too quick. I feel nervous about it.
We have a long night next week, so.